the bodies was a free-flowing underground black market to these surgeons. People knew it, but they looked the other way, and they performed all the surgeries they could, studying the body parts, and they're very eager and competing for good specimens to get them as fresh as they could, because they got stinky really fast without refrigeration. And if there was someone that had an anomaly or a giantism or something else, then they paid a lot of money to get them, because they couldn't wait to cut and find out what they might about that. Well, at this time, again, I said anesthesia was nowhere to be found, but you get to the mid-19th century or 1800s, and ether had been around and invented or recognized since the 1200s. And a man named Joseph Priestley in 1798 discovered nitrous oxide. So two very old anesthetics. And they were around and they were being used, but not for surgery. Their most common use was for partying. Ether frolics, capers, traveling medicine shows where people would try different things on the stage and stumble around and act goofy for entertainment, both for the crowd and for the people that were snorting, sniffing, or whatever, however they were taking them. So, but some people started noticing that they had anesthetic properties during this time. And we're going to go through a list of gentlemen, and I'm going to mention each of them briefly because they played an important role in the discovery of so-called modern anesthesia. But I'd like to point out, they keep talking about, when you read some textbooks, you think that this is where anesthesia begun. And that's why I like to go back to Genesis and talk about some of the others. It didn't begin there. Most cultures, probably all cultures, had some form of anesthesia that they used in some form of surgery. But this is a picture of like the common amphitheater. There would be a large stand like a college lecture hall, and everyone would crowd around even and to do surgery. And these traveling shows would get people up on stage and give them gas, and they would act goofy. And this was a very old actual flyer from one of these shows. But these gentlemen here, a number of them had noticed the anesthetic qualities of some of these agents. And Crawford Long didn't get recognized. Horace Wells had a horrible ending, and so did Morton. Morton will get most of the credit here. I'll show you in a moment. Snow is known for labor analgesia in England. And then I'll just skim over this last part. But the fluorine technology was from the study on nuclear weapons after World War II that led to the ability to fluorinate ether, which eliminated the flammability. So when you see operating rooms today, you often still see, after all these years, that we haven't had flammable anesthetics. It's a pretty long time. No flammable anesthetics. I think they should just finally get over that and drop that, because there's no flammable anesthetic. Well, there might be some ether still used somewhere in the third world, but I think it's halothane is the oldest form of anesthesia that's really inhalation anesthesia that's being used. This is not an ether frolic, but I think there's something in common. There's a lot of alcohol, and this is basically the kind of in one sense, the start of anesthesia. With people getting together and sniffing things and trying things, and then later they discovered that it had anesthetic properties. In fact, Crawford Long, that's how he was introduced to it. When he was partying as a college student and taking place in these midnight capers, and he would hurt himself occasionally and realize that he had almost no pain when he was on ether. And so he started using it in his practice. He was in, I think, South Carolina. But he made a mistake. He didn't record it. And he didn't document it. And then later, when Morton and these other guys come out and start getting all the claim, he says, hey, well, I had this all along. And he did have documentation, but he didn't pursue it and didn't continue with it, so he didn't get the credit. This guy was a dentist from Connecticut, and he came up with the idea of doing a public demonstration of anesthesia. He'd been using it in his dental practice to pull teeth, and he set up a big demonstration with a lot of publicity at Mass General Hospital in 1845. And unfortunately, he didn't give enough nitrous. Something happened, or the patient didn't cooperate well, and the patient can make you look bad in anesthesia even today. You don't want to look bad and have them screaming and waking up during surgery. But that's what this guy did. They were removing a tumor, I think, or something, and a physician was doing it, and he was given the anesthesia, and the guy screamed out in pain, and everybody started booing and throwing things, and he left humiliated, didn't really get over that, and he went to Paris and tried to fight to get credit and introduce nitrous oxide as an anesthetic. And things just went worse and worse for him. He lost his family, he lost his business, and he became addicted to chloroform, which he was also experimenting with, and was using that all the time. And in the end, he came back to New York and kind of crazy and embittered about not getting credit, because during this time, the next fellow that I'm going to talk about gets credit, and anesthesia is hailed around the world as this new era of surgery, and he gets all the credit. In the meantime, a lot of people were fighting for that credit, and Wells was one of them, because he made the first public demonstration. And Morton, the next guy, was at that demonstration and saw it. And he actually threw some sulfuric acid on some prostitutes. This is interesting history, I think, in New York, and was arrested, and he had some chloroform hidden, and he anesthetized himself in prison, and under that, his own anesthesia, cut his groin artery and bled to death. I just think it's interesting. Sorry, that's just a little off the point there. So Morton later sets up another demonstration under ether, and the next thing you know, the news goes around the world, and he's a hero, and we have the advent of modern anesthesia. And Snow was a physician. By the way, Wells was supposed to be dentists try to claim him and physicians try to claim him. He was sometimes called both. There's no record of him ever going to medical or dental school. He certainly did pull a lot of teeth. Morton was also a dentist, so the dentists were real proud of that, and they're still very involved in anesthesia today, and he got all the credit. Snow was a physician, and he used chloroform. That was more popular in England, and the ether became more popular in the United States. And Queen Victoria, lo and behold, was pregnant with Prince Leopold. And he, somehow they come to an agreement that he was going to give chloroform for labor. So we have the advent of labor analgesia. And that wasn't received very well with the public, because that really seemed to be going against the Bible, where it says that your pain will be multiplied in childbirth, and in pain shall you bring forth children, something like that. People thought it was quite immoral, and they weren't sure that it wasn't immoral in general, even outside of childbirth. But when Queen Victoria did it, even though they said things about her and she was scandalized publicly in the paper, she was such a high position that that affected the popularity. And of course, what's very popular has a way of becoming less immoral over time. So